Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. Vice President Joe Biden denounced the, quote, failure to condemn terror in the meeting in Jerusalem just after a shooting attack in the Israeli capital ends with at least one person seriously wounded following a spree of stabbing attacks yesterday. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders wins the Michigan primary vote, pulling an upset for Hillary Clinton's campaign. On the Republican side, Donald Trump wins the Michigan, Mississippi, and Hawaii polls. Legendary Beatles producer Sir George Martin, also known as the Fifth Beatle, passes away at the age of 90. Good afternoon and welcome to I-24 News. I'm Benjamin Tjong Alfalas. We begin in Jerusalem, where a shooting terror attack outside Damascus Gate left one person seriously wounded. The victim was taken to hospital and the terrorists were shot by Israeli police. The incident took place right outside Jerusalem's Old City after an attempted shooting at a bus at the remote intersection. Civilians had noticed the armed attackers and reported to Israeli security authorities. The two escaped from the first scene following a single shot fired at their car and proceeded to carry out an attack near Damascus Gate before being neutralized by police. According to preliminary reports, the terrorists are Palestinians from East Jerusalem. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden arrived in Jerusalem, where he met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu a short while ago. He's now scheduled to meet with Israeli President Reuven Rivlin and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. Yesterday, Biden was at Java's Peretz Center for Peace as the terror attack took place just 2 kilometers north of there. We're joined now by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev, who is outside the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem, where Vice President Biden is meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Tal, thanks for joining us.
Well, yes, Benjamin, we're actually here at the president's residence awaiting Biden's arrival. His meeting with Netanyahu is still underway. And despite the very difficult circumstances that accompanied Biden's arrival, he is receiving a very warm reception here in Jerusalem. Just a short while ago, he finished a joint statement with Netanyahu, and both leaders expressed warm affections one to another, with Biden saying that he always says that he loves Netanyahu, even though he doesn't necessarily agree with most of the things he believes in. And of course, the surge in the Palestinian terror attacks is at the top of the agenda of the statements. Netanyahu expresses his condolences to the family of the U.S. citizen that was killed and murdered yesterday in the Jaffa terror attack. And Netanyahu also points to the fact that the Palestinian leadership has been silent and hasn't denounced this. So Biden gives a very strong statement against terror and also against those who accept terror, those leaders who accept terror, but he also calls on both sides, both Israelis and the Palestinians, to restore the calm and take steps that will leave the two-state solution viable. There are also other topics that come up in the statement, such as cooperation, security cooperation between Israel and the United States in the midst of very intense negotiations over the security aid that the U.S. is going to give Israel for the next 10 years. Both Biden and Netanyahu praise the alliance, and Biden expresses the U.S. commitments to Israel's security. But of course, at the top of the agenda, the latest terror attacks. Let's hear what the two leaders had to say.
The last 24 hours have been very difficult for Israel, including this morning. 12 people were injured in 5 terrorist attacks. An American citizen, Taylor Force, was murdered. Nothing justifies these attacks. But unfortunately, President Abbas has not only refused to condemn these terrorist attacks, his Fatah party actually praised the murderer of this American citizen as a Palestinian martyr and a hero. Now, this is wrong. And this failure to condemn terrorism, it should be condemned itself by everybody in the international community. I believe that to fight terror, all civilized societies must stand together. And while Israel has many partners in this decisive battle, we have no better partner than the United States of America.
What Bibi and I talked about was not just the death of Taylor Force, who was served 2 tours, one in Afghanistan, one in Iraq, West Point graduate, a brilliant future. But we talked about the other wounded and the students he was with, and our instinct was the same. We both said, let's go to the hospital now. Let's go see them. The United States of America condemns these acts and condemns the failure to condemn these acts. They're targeting innocent civilians, mothers, pregnant women, teenagers, grandfathers, American citizens. There can be no justification for this hateful violence, and the United States stands firmly behind Israel's right to defend itself, as we are defending ourselves at this moment as well.
Going now to Iran, which test-launched 2 ballistic missiles today, just one day after conducting a similar exercise aimed at proving Tehran's, quote, all-out readiness to confront threats, as reported by Iran state media. According to Fars News, today's rocket included Hebrew inscription that wrote, quote, Israel needs to be wiped off the face of the earth. Well, going now to the U.S. presidential campaign trail for the latest primary results. Democratic candidate Bernie Sanders pulled off a surprise narrow win in Michigan, a state his campaign perceived as crucial. Hillary Clinton, meanwhile, swept to victory in the state of Mississippi with over 82% of the vote, winning overall 12 out of 21 contests so far. On the Republican side, Donald Trump emerged as the big winner in the states of Michigan, Mississippi, and Hawaii, prevailing in 15 out of 23 races so far. More from ABC News.
The hunt is on for delegates.
In the last week, we have won 3 caucuses, and 2 of them were record-breaking turnouts.
Bernie Sanders with the stunner, now adding a major victory in Michigan, a state both Democrats and Republicans courted.
This has been a fantastic night in Michigan.
Sanders already looking ahead to Super Tuesday Part 3, with contests in Florida, Illinois, Ohio, and Missouri. Hillary Clinton, just as excited, easily winning the contest in Mississippi by a wide margin, making it a clean sweep across the Deep South.
I want to be the president for the struggling and the striving.
Clinton walking away a winner last night, earning more delegates than Sanders. On the GOP side, Donald Trump defeating his rivals in Michigan and Mississippi.
Thank you very much, everyone. This was an amazing evening.
Celebrating his big wins at one of his properties in Florida, flanked by Trump water, Trump wine, and Trump steaks, pointing to attempts by his opponents to stop his momentum.
$38 million worth of horrible lies, but that's okay. It shows you how brilliant the public is, because they knew they were lies, and it was just really amazing to watch.
Trump's main rival, Senator Ted Cruz, battling it out for second place in Michigan with John Kasich, while Marco Rubio falling short in the biggest prizes of the night.
Some sad news today from the world of entertainment. Legendary British producer George Martin, best known as the Beatles' musical producer, passed away at the age of 90 this morning. This according to a tweet by former Beatle Ringo Starr. Sir George Martin was the man to sign the Beatles and produce all their records. Ringo Starr tweeted, "God bless George Martin. Peace and love to Judy and his family. Love, Ringo and Barbara. George will be missed." He added, "Thank you for all your love and kindness. George, peace and love." British Prime Minister David Cameron tweeted, Sir George Martin was a giant of music, working with the Fab Four to create the world's most enduring pop music. And a short while ago, Paul McCartney issued a statement saying Martin was a second father to him. Earlier, we were joined on the phone by i24 News editor Sefi Efrati.
George Martin was the first to actually sign the Beatles to their first mainstream record contract, thus making history. The man's work cannot really be underrated. He did all the orchestral arrangements, if not more, for the Beatles. He took them step by step from their first emergence as a little rock and roll band and literally made them, throughout recording, made them into one of rock's greatest icons ever. This is a very, very sad day for rock and roll and music lovers throughout the world. He's leading an amazing body of work of Beatles songs, 13 albums, and more.
And we finish with a total solar eclipse that was observed on Ternate Island in eastern Indonesia. Many people around the world were able to see the phenomenon through a live stream set up by the Panasonic Eclipse Live by Solar Power project. But in other eastern parts of the archipelago, where the total eclipse could be seen, clouds spoiled the view for many skywatchers. In Australia, a partial eclipse of the sun was visible to millions, as was the case in parts of Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Well, those were the latest reports. We'll be back here in 20 minutes for more. Join us again then. Thank you for watching.